Welcome everyone to Las Vegas and to All-Star Weekend. We hope you enjoy the experience of being here. We think it'll be a fun weekend, and frankly, it's good to have the All-Star game back after the COVID hiatus. I want to first start by thanking Las Vegas for the hospitality. We've hosted a number of events here over the years, even before the Golden Knights existed. The hospitality, this is a city that's known for it, has always been great, and where else would they let us shut down the main thoroughfare so that we could conduct the skills events? So we are grateful to Vegas. I also want to thank the Golden Knights, Bill Foley in particular, Kerry Bulbos, George McPhee, Kelly McCrimmon, for all of their support, and actually for all the great work that they've done to make the Golden Knights an incredible part of this community. I know there were a lot of skeptics when we announced we were expanding to Vegas. The reception, the support, the connection between the team and the community is incredible, and I guess that's why all the other sports leagues either talked about coming here or actually came here in the NFL's case. I also want to acknowledge and thank Honda, our title sponsor for All-Star Weekend, and in particular tomorrow's All-Star Games. To DraftKings, the sportsbook, presenting sponsor for tonight's All-Star Skills, which will include, and I'll have to read this because I don't want to leave anybody out, individual events sponsored by Discover, Verizon, Dunkin', Adidas, Honda, and Las Vegas. If anything, it should indicate the vibrancy of our business relationships and our partnerships and the important brands that choose to be associated with us. I also want to thank Truly Hard Seltzer, title sponsor of the Fanfare, which one of the highlights was SAP Kids Day. We're getting tremendous support, as I indicated, from our business partners, and it's great to see, and it's great to have everybody together again, as I started by saying, for All-Star Weekend. Before Bill and I and Colin Campbell and Kim Davis, as appropriate, take your questions, I want to make note of a few other things that are going on in terms of updates. And this starts with some of the initiatives that we talked about at the December board meeting. Sheldon Kennedy's Respect Group will begin training with all 32 clubs in March. Our Respect Hockey Summit, which will bring together the presidents and CEOs of the major North American governing bodies, will have its first planning meeting on February 10th. Our hotline is obviously still operational and receiving calls, which are followed up on. I think it's important to note in this general context that on Monday, President Biden signed into law the Congressional Gold Medal Act for Willie O'Ree. We couldn't be more thrilled and delighted. Willie will become just the second person in history to have received both the Congressional Gold Medal and the Order of Canada, the highest civilian honors bestowed in each country. And just as a matter of history, the only other person who's done that is former Ambassador, the late Ken Taylor. For those of you who don't remember who Ken was, think about Iran and the hostages in the Canadian embassy. And actually, he too was a friend. I referred earlier to the December board meeting, and shortly after it concluded, COVID sprung up in a big way, again in the form of the Omicron variant. Just to give you a sense of the impact it had on us, yes, obviously, as I think you all know, we have rescheduled 105 games. couple of which were for weather, but most of them were because of COVID. Thank goodness we had a planned break to go to the Olympics. It enabled us to reschedule the games. In the absence of that roughly 3-week period, I'm not sure how we would have been able to finish the season on any rational basis or any irrational basis. But we've been able to do that, and Steve Hatzapetros deserves an incredible amount of credit, as do our clubs and the players, for the cooperation that we have received in this challenging time. Amid our rigorous testing regimen, on no single day this season, through up to December 12th, were there ever more than 27 players unavailable because of COVID protocols. Obviously, there were clusters on some teams which caused us to have to reschedule games. And I know there was a lot of discussion about test or don't test. We and the Players Association, who jointly agree on all the protocols, were relying on what the doctors thought was the most appropriate and safest thing for the health and well-being of our players, the associated personnel, and the communities in which we played. But the fact that the numbers were what they were is a testament to the fact that our players were vaccinated, if you recall, in unbelievable numbers. One player was the only, not 1%, one player was unvaccinated, and that speaks volumes in terms of our focus and commitment with our players and the cooperation we did together. But, and I think it was Bill who reported to the board on December 9th that at that time we had roughly 18 players in COVID protocol. By December 26th, that number increased tenfold, and that's what we were dealing with because of the Omicron variant. But the good news is we've made steady progress since then. We've now gone through 14 straight days with fewer than 50 players in protocol, and the last 8 days with fewer than 30. And I think as of today, there are only 13 players unavailable to play or practice because of COVID protocols. And, you know, we've been dealing with a challenge, as I think you all know, with the requirements or restrictions placed on our Canadian teams. Some of our teams are not allowed to have people in the building. Some are allowed at 50%. Food and drink is an issue for patrons who are actually fans who are actually going to the games. We respect the procedures, and, you know, we obviously don't have the decision-making authority, and so we and our clubs are complying. And while it's having an impact, I think it is fair to say that while to some extent it will diminish HRR, I still think we're going to be in the $5 billion range. It'll be less than we were projecting in December, obviously because of the attendance restrictions in Canada, but it isn't going to, you know, damage HRR as a whole. I will say that the impact is devastating to the clubs that play in Canada, certainly from an economic standpoint and even from a competitive standpoint, because they're not getting the home crowds that when they play their American club colleagues that those clubs get at home. So with that, I want to return the focus to this weekend. Today, skills competition is on ESPN. The Walt Disney Company is broadcasting its first league tentpole event since our transformational broadcast and digital rights deal was signed last spring. Tomorrow, ABC, well, that's what happens after 16 years of practice. Tomorrow, ABC broadcasts the All-Star game, and it will be, I guess, the second game, because we had the Thanksgiving Day Black Friday game, but you have to think back really to Game 7 of the 2004 Stanley Cup Final, to the last time that we've seen an event of this magnitude. What's interesting to note, in the 7 games of the 2004 Stanley Cup Final, there were 0 lead changes, 0 as in none. Through Wednesday's game this season, 41.2% of our games were won by a team that trailed at some point during the game. We also, when you look at how the game's being played, have 9 players who are currently on pace for 100-point seasons, a number that was last reached in the 95-96 season. And we have 23 players who are on pace for 40-goal seasons, more than 7 times as many as just 5 years ago. Young players continue to make their mark on the game. They continue to dazzle. They continue to entertain. For example, Cale Makar, who's on pace to become the first defenseman in over a decade to score 30 goals in a season. Trevor Zegras, whose skill and creativity merited an invite, special invite, to participate this weekend as well. And so we continue to be excited about the youngsters in the game. And then we also have a force of nature, Alex Ovechkin, who's not only climbing our all-time goal-scoring list, but is also pursuing the league scoring title, and that's at age 36. And I know Alex regrets not being here, but COVID had an impact again. So whether it's young or old, our players are shining, and I suppose that's how it should be, and I suppose that's what All-Star Weekend is all about. So looking ahead in the short and longer term, we're going to continue our drive for normalcy, and in that sense, we're planning, as you know, for this season. We have the Stadium Series game in Nashville scheduled on February 26th, the Lightning and the Predators. We've got the Heritage Classic in Hamilton on March 13th, which is Buffalo and Toronto. Our plan is to conduct the 2022 NHL Draft in person and with fans in the stand at Bell Center in Montreal on July 7th and July 8th, although if in fact the current restrictions are still in place, not only can't we have fans, I don't think we could have all the NHL and club personnel we need to conduct the draft. And if the restrictions are still in place, we're going to have to consider doing something else with the draft other than conducting it in Montreal. But hopefully the restrictions and the COVID impact will be eased by then. Actually, you know, it's interesting. Attendance in this COVID environment, and I know a lot's been written about it, is probably soft by about 5 or 6%. That is probably better than the other leagues are seeing. And under the circumstances, I find it pretty encouraging. And the softness around the edges, which is really what this is, comes from a couple of places. There are obviously some people who are not yet comfortable in certain places to be in large crowds, although here in Las Vegas, I think they've sold out every game this season. There are some people who are saying, I'm not going to games unless everybody is vaccinated and wearing a mask. And there are other people who are saying, I'm not going to a game if I have to be vaccinated and wear a mask. So the fact that there's a little bit of softness around the edges shouldn't be surprising in the environment, but as I started, the business of the game is strong. Our TV ratings on ESPN and TNT, if they continue on the current trend, will be the most viewed television for us, second most viewed since 95, 96. Ratings are up pretty substantially, which is a testament to the great work that ESPN and TNT are doing. And I believe our attendance will pick up as COVID declines that last 5 or 6% around the edges. Looking ahead a little further, going back on topic as to where I was going before I went off on that tangent, next fall we're planning the Global Series return with games in Germany, Switzerland, Finland, and the Czech Republic. We're going to play a Stadium Series game in Carolina at Carter Finley Stadium. All-Star weekend will take place in South Florida. And the Bruins will host the Winter Classic at Fenway Park. The exact dates and the opponents will be finalized in the not-too-distant future, but why not have something to speculate about between now and then? With me, besides Bill Daly here, is Colin Campbell, who you all know, and Kim Davis, who you all know. And with that, again, welcome, have fun, and we'll take your questions.
Barry, you want to go first? Barry Bloom in the front.
Barry Bloom now at Sportico. Hi, gentlemen. It's great to see you live for a change.
Yes, good to see you as well, Barry.
Thank you. I have two fairly disparate questions. The first one is about not going to China. What did that do to your business interests over there and spreading the game over in China? And are you guys working on other initiatives even though you didn't go? And my second one is the usual Coyotes question, which is, with no arena yet approved and another 5 years before it would be built, if it does get approved, are you guys fine with them playing in a 5,000-seat arena for 5 years?
Why don't you do China, and I'll do Arizona.
Do you want to do Arizona first?
No, you can do China first.
The answer on China is it's a complicated question. We do continue to invest in the spread of youth hockey in China, and that continues to be an initiative for us. We're obviously not planning on putting games there next year, and whether and when we resume that is an open question at this point. So I think it continues to be on our radar screen. We continue to view it as an opportunity. We continue to want to shepherd the game and the development of the game in China. But what form that takes as we move forward is probably open to question right now.
Did you say it was a complicated issue?
Yes.
I could say the same thing about Arizona. But let's all take a deep breath on Arizona and focus on the circumstances with which they find themselves. Their current landlord, which is the city of Glendale, despite what they may be saying now, basically said to the Coyotes, either sign a 20-year lease or get out. Coyotes, I believe, have rightfully concluded that long-term it doesn't make sense to continue to be in Glendale. It's a challenge to get there, and obviously relations between the city and Glendale and the club aren't at a high point. You got to look at the alternatives because Alex Morello, particularly based on what he's prepared to do, is obviously committed to the Coyotes and committed to Arizona, is in the process of trying to get the ability to build a new arena on the east side of the Valley of the Sun, Tempe to be specific, and he is hopeful and optimistic that is something that he can do, which we think will completely reverse the current fortunes of the club. So what do you do in the interim? Glendale has shut them out. The Phoenix Suns have apparently no interest in sharing their building even on a temporary basis with the Coyotes. My guess is they would prefer that the Coyotes leave town, but there are a lot of hockey fans, and the team has built a good fan base, and with the right arena situation, they will be fine. And better than fine, I think they'll be great. And at the end of the day, if there has to be a temporary accommodation, knowing that a new building is coming. This obviously can't be indefinite. I think they can create a terrific experience for people in a more intimate setting, and it wouldn't be the first time that we were in a small temporary facility pending the construction of a new arena. Long-winded way of saying is this is a good market. This has been a franchise that has had its challenges, some of which are beyond its control. And as long as there is a commitment forthcoming for a new building, then it's going to be worth sticking with it.
Your left, second row. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hello there, Jonathan Bernier from Le Journal de Montréal. So, of course, my question will be regarding the draft. Did you have any talks with the governments involved, and what is the deadline for?
That's the deadline. We haven't had any talks. We know the Canadians have been in talks because it has been extraordinarily painful to see them play in an empty building, particularly when, as I understand it, people are going to restaurants and bars. But I'm not going to argue and protest against what the governmental authorities have determined they think they need to do. We haven't had direct conversations. When we get to a point in time where we think we have to make a decision, we'll see what the state of the world is. Hopefully restrictions will get lifted sooner rather than later. This is very frustrating for everybody, for all the clubs in Canada, whether they're at 50% or basically zero capacity. And we're hoping that as COVID wanes, the health authorities open things up for our clubs.
Greg?
Hey there. Greg Wyshynski, ESPN. On the Coyotes front, I was wondering if you could tell us in a general sense, if they do end up playing at ASU, their capped capacity of 5,000 or less, what the implications are for hockey-related revenue, and also is there any impact on revenue sharing for them?
The answer to that is twofold. One, there is no impact on revenue sharing because they already get the maximum. So that's not an issue. Two, and this will tell you why it is that they need a new arena, we're not sure there's going to be material difference between their revenues at ASU than where they are at a level at Glendale. In fact, under one projection that we've done, we think they may do better.
Renaud?
Renaud Lavoie, TVA Sport. If I may, Commissioner, go back on the draft in Montreal. I understand what...
Pull down for a sec. I apologize.
Sorry. I understand what you mentioned regarding the draft in Montreal. Can you share with us how long does it take, to say, well, we're going to go in that city, and how many weeks or months do you need to build a new draft, if possible?
It's not something you can do in a couple of weeks if you're going to have fans in attendance. We think the draft is an important event, and we're hopeful that we can conduct it as we plan to in Montreal. Steve Mayer has been a little preoccupied right now, but that's a discussion we're going to have after All-Star Weekend internally.
My guess is we'd have to go virtual again. I don't think.
No, I think we might go somewhere else.
Mm-hmm.
Chris Johnson.
Well, in that regard, just as a general ebb and flow of this, not surprisingly, a number of the Canadian clubs have asked about the possibility of playing their games somewhere else. That's how troublesome and devastating it is for the clubs, and it's not something that anybody wants to do, and it's not something we're actively encouraging, but it's something that if this continues much longer, we may have to let them consider.
Gary, where would they play then, just to follow up on that?
You're two steps ahead of something that's theoretical at the point, but they have raised the question, number of clubs.
When you describe it as devastating, I believe Ottawa has 11 home games in this window where they're not allowed to have fans. I mean, do you have any particular concerns about their situation, just losing that many games?
Well, I mean, all the clubs that can't have full capacity are losing lots of money. I don't have concerns about a club going out of business. It's not unlike what we've been through for the last couple of years. Completing the 1920 season and then doing the 2021 season costs a lot of money. Okay, it is. I think, not that when you're focusing on an owner's commitment is to his club, but on average, I don't know, we lost $50 million a club maybe, you know, on some more, some less, and adding this for some clubs on top of it isn't great. We're not, by the way, nobody's looking for sympathy or putting out a collection cup for ownership. That's not what this is about. This is about whether or not it's really vital for clubs to be foregoing these revenue streams, whether or not it's vital for HRR to be reduced, and whether or not there's another way to approach this, putting aside the competitive aspect, because we've all seen the difference between the atmosphere in our game and the energy the players get from our fans by playing in an empty building or a full building.
Go ahead, Scott. Scott?
Two questions, if I may. Can you tell me or tell us what the reaction from the league was to Rocky Wirtz's discussion during their town hall meeting the other night, and further what dialogue there might have been from the league with Rocky and the Blackhawks organization?
I think in the way I think it's been characterized is it was an outburst. And I think what has happened with that franchise because of Kyle Beach and with Kyle Beach, for which we all agree was horrible, and they acknowledge as well. I think this has been very emotional and frustrating and draining for the Blackhawks and Rocky in particular. And I think as they're trying to focus on the things they need to do organizationally to move forward, I think it was an emotional moment which Rocky promptly on his own apologized for. And the ironic thing is, which tells you that this is an emotional, frustrating moment, and Kim can talk more to this if you want, they're doing all the things to move forward. They're doing the work. The people who belong to be gone are gone. New people have been brought in. There's training. They're doing things above and beyond what we're doing at the league level. They're putting in a wellness department. They had answers for everything. I think this was just, you know, all of us at one time or another have a moment, and this was a moment.
And just to confirm, no further
No.
league sanction
None.
as a result?
No. We will continue, as we do with all our clubs, to hold them accountable, to do the work, and make sure they're doing the right things. But, you know, let's start back a step. We would like all of our interactions among players, executives, coaches, managers, fans, the media, we'd like them all to be friendly, cordial, professional, and overwhelmingly they are. But this one was a moment.
If I can also ask, I don't know whether Bill will want to answer this or not, but where we're at with a World Cup of Hockey. I know there's some reports perhaps as early as the February break in 2024. Maybe take us through where you're at with that, and if it is potentially on the docket, what it might look like.
So we had a meeting with the Players Association last week on it. It is something that we committed to each other throughout kind of the Olympic developments that we would get to very quickly, because we need to get to it very quickly. The hope is we will be able to stage a World Cup of Hockey tournament between now and the 26 games in Milan, Italy, and have a best-on-best tournament. We have some ideas on what that can look like, and it might look a lot different than the 2016 with different elements, more exciting, compelling elements to it. Not prepared to say beyond that what they might look like, but we're going to follow up with each other, and we're going to follow up with our partners within the IIHF on that tournament.
And let me just add something tangential. We were prepared to go to the Olympics, but for COVID. And as I said at the outset, I don't know how we would have completed the season if we went to the Olympics. Hopefully the world will be a better place for Italy in 4 years, because we know the players want to go. It's important to them, and we respect that.
Mike, on the aisle on the right.
Hi, Gary. Mike Harrington, Buffalo News here.
Hey.
Knowing the points you made about attendance earlier, and they relate in some ways to Buffalo, and the border does too. But the fact remains, as they head into their 11th straight non-playoff season, their attendance has plummeted far below to what it was even when you owned the team.
I'm not sure how to take that.
And it is going to be the
Actually, I thought attendance was pretty good when we owned the team.
It's going to be the lowest of any team in this century. I mean, what is your level of concern about the sudden drop and the revenue loss? And have you addressed it with them, and are you going to address it with them?
I have complete confidence in the Pegula's ownership of the Sabres, and sometimes franchises get into a place where lots of things aren't working the way that they had hoped, but I have no reason to doubt their commitment to the Sabres or to Buffalo, and they'll turn it around. And the good news is they're committed to Buffalo, and they have the resources to do it.
Okay. Second row on the left.
Hey, Greg Heeks from Agence France Presse. My question is about the Olympics, and I'm wondering, what was the reaction of the Beijing organizers when you told them you weren't going? And do you think that this will make it difficult or hurt your chances of ever going back there for games?
I don't know, did we get, what was the reaction? They weren't happy, obviously.
Yeah, I mean, I think it was always on the radar screen that it was a possibility. So I don't think it caught many people by surprise, particularly given what happened here in North America in particular with COVID and with the Omicron variant. Once we had to start canceling games and rescheduling them, the decision really was made for us. There was really no alternative. And I think everybody was understanding of that. As Gary said, they were disappointed. But I don't think it will harm our ability to play internationally in the future.
And it was just to highlight something Bill said, the agreements that were reached for the players to participate specifically included an out if we found ourselves in the circumstance that we found ourselves in. So this was no surprise, but it was something that we anticipated could be a problem for us. I think because of the importance of hockey to the Winter Games and what a difference our players can make in that tournament, I think they'll welcome us to Italy in 4 years. And I think if the world is in a different place, we'll be thrilled to have our players go.
All the way in the back on the riser.
Hey, Commissioner, Bill. Jonathan West, Pacific Northwest Sports.
Oh, there you are.
There we are.
Straight ahead.
Straight.
So we
Center
have
field.
a brand new location for the All-Star game this year, and we also have a brand new team with a representative here. Jeff Baker, Seattle Times, came out with an article mid-season with an interview with you. Could you just expound on your praise for the Seattle Kraken franchise and any improvements you'd like to see moving forward, since this is kind of a tale of two cities here?
What do you mean it's a tale of two cities?
Oh, just from Vegas's expansion 4 years ago through the expansion draft, some people talking about the GMs being ready for the expansion draft this year, moving forward, anything that you see with that?
Seattle, like Vegas, from an expansion team creation standpoint, from arena to ownership group to market, everything was great. They did it first class. The terms of the expansion draft were the same. How do you account for the difference in performance? That's why we play the games. And I think that we can all, particularly fans in Seattle, be proud of the work that's being done. David Bonderman's ownership group, Todd Leiwecki's running of the franchise, Ronnie Francis is assembling of a team. Let's not judge them too early. The fan reaction has been spectacular, and the expansion wasn't for a year or two. It's for years and decades into the future, and I think NHL hockey in Seattle, the future is extraordinarily bright, and we're excited about it. And maybe we'll even bring an All-Star game there sometime.
Third row on your left.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. You mentioned the youth that is participating in this All-Star game. you take a look at the entertainment as well as some of the skills competitions. They're a little different and skew maybe to a younger demographic. How important is it to get those younger viewers hooked on hockey on these type of events? And secondly, can you just reflect on the difference in this market from when the Rangers played the Kings outdoors in '91 to now?
Seriously? Night and day? I mean, the fact is, this is a terrific hockey market, and it's a testament to Bill Foley's vision, and the community has really embraced this team. You know, and I alluded to this in my opening remarks, people were skeptical. We weren't. We believed that this would work and that Bill was going to nail it, and the Vegas Golden Knights have. I'm not sure, other than Las Vegas Boulevard, there's anything that unifies Las Vegas more than the Golden Knights. You see it everywhere. You see it in neighborhood bars and restaurants. It's something that brings people together, and it is fantastic to see. What was the other part of your question? As I was...
Skills.
Oh, skills. I mean, listen, this is about fun this weekend. It's about being entertaining. And any entertainment vehicle, any sports league, any sport, you have to evolve with the times to make yourself and keep yourself relevant. Can't stand still. And whether it's, you know, creating a game framework where young players can demonstrate their speed and skill in ways perhaps the game didn't let them 20 years ago, which is a testament to our competitive balance and the way that players are developed and the great skill that these young players have. But it's all about making sure that we're relevant, we're exciting, we're entertainment, and we're competitive. And that's what our goal is. And if you don't do that, you stagnate and probably move backwards. And it's the content, and it's also how we distribute, which is why we've made a point of being much more active on social media. And it's why we think our arrangement with ABC, ESPN, ESPN Plus, and Hulu is so innovative, because we think it takes us to the next generation of how content from a sports standpoint will be consumed.
As you can tell by the sound, we only have a few more minutes, so go ahead.
Hey, Gary, Sean.
I thought
Maybe
that that was just a review of what we were doing.
Very well.
Hey, Gary, with going back to Arizona, when you look at Arizona, how long realistically can you wait for a permanent
Well,
structure?
it's something that has to be done in the short term. It's not going to be 2 weeks, but it's not going to be 2 years. If there's no prospect of a new building, then we're going to have to focus with ownership on what makes sense. But as long as there is a realistic possibility in the nearer term of a new arena in the right place, we think that there's a tremendous opportunity for that vibrant market. I mean, hockey has done very well at all levels in Arizona, particularly since the Coyotes were there. Just ask Austin Matthews.
And then as far as the TV deal goes, right now there's a lot of people, you see every week there was blowback about how do I find the game on TV, and that's the national TV deal. But also from a perspective of local, does the league ever look into a perspective of how do we make sure things like on Sinclair get carried more often? Because we hear that all the time.
Well, the regional sports channel business has been facing challenges with some of the pushback that the cable and satellite carriers are doing. And frankly, if you're a consumer who has cable or satellite and they're not carrying your regional, you should let them hear about it, or you should find another way to connect with the game, which is why we're doing some of the things that we're doing. At the end of the day, we want to make sure our games are widely available. I think in terms of finding the games, we were basically in one place for 16 years. Change has to be navigated. And actually, we've been working very closely with TNT and ESPN to make sure that we're getting the word out as to how to find the games. It's a work in progress, but having said that, our viewership numbers are up in a strong way. So people are finding the games, and I think over time, more people are going to find the games.
Time for two more. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah,
two questions about, well, one question about each event next year, one about the Global Series. Why is it important to restart that, to go back internationally? And two, in regards to Fenway Park for the Winter Classic, we've been there before. What can be different this time, especially with what you've learned in the last, what is it now, 12 years since it's been there?
Why don't you take the first question? I'll take the
So
second.
internationally, for us, it's a no-brainer. Right? I think we had established a certain momentum in terms of having a greater and more regular presence with games in Europe, and I think with the pandemic waning and hopefully a return to normalcy, it only makes sense to restart those efforts and to further them. So that's it's important for us.
It's been, I think, 12 years since we were in Fenway. A lot of money has been put into the building. It's not quite the same ballpark. Boston's obviously a great hockey town, and you know, we've now done over 30 outdoor games. You gotta, if you're going to keep doing them, you got to go back to some of the places, and it won't look and it won't be the same. Steve Mayer won't allow it as it was last time. It'll be a new experience in a venue that has been transformed and modernized in some ways. But we think it'll be a great event, and you'll have to speculate on who the opponent might be.
Last one, front.
Tyler, you're on Chuck Daily Face-Off. Just wondering if there was a comment on the Calgary Flames arena deal and maybe some disappointment on how that so seemingly fell apart.
Yeah, that's an important question as well. Calgary ownership, the Flames are committed to Calgary. They're a vital part of the community. I think the mayor was just quoted as saying, well, now that the deal's off, everybody's a free agent. I think the club feels okay about that because the deal kept changing on them. I know there's been a change of administrations, but each time they made an accommodation to try and deal with things that the city was asking for that weren't part of the basic deal, the deal kept getting more and more expensive and frankly wasn't what they had agreed to. And at some point, you have to say, enough is enough. And if this gives everybody an opportunity to take a fresh look at how to build the building, where to build the building in Calgary, maybe that's not a bad thing. So yes, the city's a free agent, but so is the club, and that's good. My only concern, and it's not a short-term concern, but it's a longer-term concern, the Saddle Dome needs work, which the city is going to have to put a bunch of money into. And I think the sooner people figure out how to get a new arena, the better it'll be, particularly because the cost of building a building keeps going up. These delays haven't been helpful, but I know, and I've been privy every step of the way to the negotiations, probably more privy at one point when Mayor Nenshi was involved than some people may have liked. But the Flames ownership has tried mightily to get a deal done and to go the extra mile, and I think the city just pushed it too hard, too far, and didn't make sense.